We have multiple challenges. There will need to be a fiscal event, as you rightly say, and I've set out my priorities. My first priority is reducing taxes, because what I don't believe is taking money from people in taxes and then giving it back to them in benefits. That is Gordon Brown economics, and frankly, it hasn't worked. And the second thing we need to deal with is supply, and in particular, the energy supply. We haven't done enough to get gas out of the ground, to use our reserves, to move forward with nuclear, to move forward renewables. And we need to get on with those things much quicker, as well as liberating other bits of supply in the economy. I talked in my speech about investment. We need to do things like Solvency II, so we liberate investment. So we need to deal with the supply. Now, of course, I give you the example of Britain, where we cut corporation tax and we saw revenues increase. There's an example of where cutting taxes actually helped us attract more revenue into the Treasury and more growth into the economy. And this whole language, John, of unfunded tax cuts implies the static model, the so-called abacus economics that the Treasury orthodoxy has promoted for years. But it hasn't worked for our economy, because what we've ended up with is high tax, high spending and low growth. And that is not a sustainable model for Britain's future. I sat in Cabinet and I opposed the national insurance rise for precisely the reason. And I raise my issues internally. I've complained about plenty of these policies internally, but I respect collective responsibility and I was loyal throughout. But fundamentally, it was wrong to raise national insurance. We promised we wouldn't do it in our manifesto. We didn't need to do it. We could have funded the NHS costs out of general taxation, and that decision was taken. I think it's wrong. Because frankly, every woman in politics gets compared to Theresa May or Margaret Thatcher because there haven't been as many women leaders as men leaders.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
But I don't hear you disowning the comparison with a small state Conservative like Margaret Thatcher. Now let me ask you this.
She was a great leader of our country, and I'm proud of the way she turned our country down. And but that doesn't mean what we're facing now is the situation we're facing in 1979. It's a different situation, and we need different policies now. But the principles she believed in were the right principles. Enterprise, personal responsibility, giving people control over their own money, putting money back in people's pockets. Those are the principles I agree with. First of all, my thoughts go out to the family, and it's an absolutely appalling crime and appalling murder that took place in Liverpool. Yes, we do need to see more police on our streets. It's about recruiting more officers, but it's also about making sure those officers are focused on the crimes we care about and the public care about. I would introduce league tables so the public have a better way of looking at how their local force is performing. And we need that change in the culture driven by police and crime commissioners, driven from the top. Well, first of all, I do think there need to be proper whistleblowing procedures. I would put in place, if I was elected as Prime Minister, a strong chief whip. I would return them to number 12 Downing Street, so they are at the heart of government and making sure that there is zero tolerance for misbehaviour. The culture of organisations, John, starts at the top, and that's what's important to me. And of course, I would ensure the correct apparatus is in place so that people are able to, whistleblow if there are problems. But if a leader is saying that they don't know the difference between right and wrong and they need to outsource it to an ethics advisor, I think that's a fundamental problem. I think some of my friends might say I'm a bit relentless.
That's not a flaw.
Well, it is sometimes.
And that's about as much as I'm going to get on that.
Well, first of all, I think it is important that we support tenants and landlords and have a very clear rental market. And I also think it's important that we don't sort of drive landlords out of the market, and we do make sure that there are fair rules in place. But I also want to help more people who've been renting get onto the property ladder. So what I would want to do is enable people with good rental histories to be able to use those rental histories to get a mortgage, to help more people own their own home. Yes, I will allow new grammar schools, absolutely. And I will also allow new free schools as well. And I'm a big fan of free schools like the Michaela School, which is fantastic. And we need to allow the good schools to expand and set up more branches right around the country. And I'm somebody who did go to a comprehensive school. My daughters now both go to grammar school. I want children all across the country to have those opportunities.